Labas rytas, gerbiami kolegos, konferencijos dalyviai. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear participants of the conference. It is a great pleasure to greet you in the 9th International Interdisciplinary Scientific Conference, The Region, History, Culture, Language. Today we have the conference online via Teams platform. So despite of the very serious situation in all around the world, including Lithuania, we still have this great possibility to meet our guests, to meet our friends of the academic community in this international conference. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Vita Juknevičienė, and I will be moderator of this plenary session. Today we would like to start this session from the welcome speeches, and I would like to invite our acting vice rector for research and art, Professor Jana, to give a welcome speech to all participants. Jana, please.
Good morning to all participants of this conference. Really, the situation in the world is very difficult, and we don't have possibilities to meet physically, to see each other. But I am very happy that we have this opportunity to meet virtual. And I would like to say big thanks to Regina and Vita organizing this virtual conference, because it is the opportunity to meet each other, to discuss all things. They are very interesting and very important in this time, about the region, about the history, culture and language. And wish you all of you very interesting 2 days of the conference, interesting discussions, and just to see each other and to hear each other. Have nice days. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Diana. Now we would like to ask our acting director of the Institute of Regional Development, Associated Professor Lina Geršvienė, to give her welcome speech. Please, Lina.
Hello, I hope you're here. Okay. So good morning, dear participants. Let me thank you and the organizers for being active and really ambitious in holding this 19th International Interdisciplinary Scientific Conference, the region, history, culture and language, despite the fact that we are really facing the extreme situation in the world. So I'm representing the Regional Development Institute in Šiauliai University. So I'm really interested in this area of the regions, of the history, culture and language here. So before the start, I just want to wish you shortly the unique and interesting presentations and productive discussions. So have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you for our acting director of our institute, Lina. Thank you so much. And now we would like to ask the chairperson of the conference scientific committee, Dr. Regina Kvašytė, to give a welcome speech as well. Please, Regina.
Labą dieną visi dalyviai ir svečiai. Sveikinu jūs susirinkus į virtualią konferenciją ir linkiu sėkmingo darbo. Taip pat es gribētu apsveikt visus Latvijas kolēģus, kas piedalās šajā konferencē, un novēlēt mums visiem veiksmīgu darbu. Dear presenters and guests, on behalf of the scientific committee and the organizers, I congratulate all the participants of the traditional conference. The word tradition will be common in this greeting, but this year there are more things like never before. The 2020 conference is different from the first one held in 2012. During his time, some changes have already taken place, but his time innovations are particularly striking. I will remind you that the conference was traditionally held in the spring. It was conceived and started to be prepared by the North Lithuanian Research Center of the Faculty of Humanities of Šiauliai University. And since 2015, it has been prepared by the Humanities Research Center of the Research Institute. For the second year in a row, it is arranged by a group of scientists from the Institute of Regional Development of Šiauliai University. This year, for the first time, the conference takes place in autumn, also online. So, although we always try to meet and invited for you to come to Šiauliai, the situation caused by COVID-19 does not allow us to communicate live. This is a huge challenge for all of us, both the organizers and the participants. We are glad that 30 presenters from Lithuania and 3 foreign countries, Latvia, Slovakia, and Finland, expressed their wish to participate. Traditionally, 3 sections were formed, 2 historian and 1 on culture and linguistic research. There will also be 2 plenary sessions on 15 October jointly with the Researchers Excellence Network, RENET, and on 16 October, the finally plenary session. There are quite a few regulars among the participants, but it's nice to have new one joining every year. This year is not exception. Another distinguished feature is that we have both recognized scientists and doctoral students who are just beginning their research path. This year, researchers studying the region represent 8 higher education institutions and research institutes from Lithuania, General Jana Žemaitis Military Academy of Lithuania, Klaipėda University, Kaunas University of Technology, Institute of Lithuanian Language, Institute of Lithuanian Literature and Folklore, Lithuanian Institute of History, Šiauliai State College, and Šiauliai University. 7 from Latvia, Daugavpils University, Latvian War Museum, University of Latvia, as well as the Institute of History of the University of Latvia and the Institute of Latvian Language at the University of Latvia. Liepāja University, Rezekne Academy of Technology. And 1 from Slovakia, Matej University from Banská, Bystrica, and Finland, University from Helsinki each. Articles on the base of conference reports published in the scientific edition Acta Humanitarica Universitatis Saulensis have a lasting value. Of the 26 volumes published so far, 7 were devoted to the regional themes. What is also new is that the material of his conference, the 27 volume of Acta Humanitarica Universitatis Saulensis, will be the last publication of Šiauliai University. From January 2021, we will become Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University, which means that many things will change, including the organization of conferences and publishing. Thank you for receiving October of his year and being loyal to Šiauliai University. Some of you all 9 years. I am particularly grateful to the member of the scientific committee who have also changed little during this time. Finally, I return to the tradition. For the past year, we are starting the conference with the plenary session, which are organizing together with Reda. I would like to thank the head of the Reda, Associated Professor Dr. Vita Juknevičienė, for this cooperation. This year, however, my gratitude, if we could measure it, is double. That because Vita handled all the affairs of organizing of online conference. And I give her the floor. Enjoy fruitful work.
Thank you, dear Regina. Would like to thank you for nice words for Researchers Excellence Network. It's our common issue and willingness to keep our scientific directions of Šiauliai University, scientific production and scientific cooperation. So it's a great pleasure to cooperate with Regina every year in this conference. Dear participants, we have heard 3 welcome speeches from our Vice Rector, our Director of Institute and the Chairperson of Organizing Committee. As a moderator of this session, I would like to remind you of few organizing issues. Every presenter will have 20 minutes for the presentation. Every presenter has the rights of presenter on Teams platform, so you may share your slides or other shared information in other forms. Please, if you have technical issues, do not hesitate to say this. We will try to help you to manage with it. Of course, other participants are kindly invited to be active and to give questions for our presenters. Please remember that your microphone should be muted during presentations. And if you would like to ask some hot issue or hot question just after the presentation, please raise your hand, or you may write your question or just a note for the moderator that you would like to ask something. If you will have additional questions, we will continue it after in the end of this session. That means after all presentations. So every presenter has, as I mentioned, 20 minutes. In the case of being shorter, we will still have few minutes for hot questions from the audience. So please be active as you have this nice possibility to ask and to discuss many scientific issues. So for the very beginning, I would like to ask our first presenter, researcher Kristīne Beķere from the Institute of Latvian History, University of Latvia. Kristīne, the floor is yours. You may share your presentation and start your 20 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. So just a second, I will put up my presentation.
Kristīne, your sound is very low. Maybe it's possible to be closer to your computer that we could hear you better. Okay. And we can see your slides, so the time is yours.
So is it better now? Do you hear me?
When you come closer to your computer, it is better. Thank you.
So I will try to stay here. So I hope you see my presentation title on the screen. It's really a bit strange to speak like this in such a form, but it just proves what adaptable creatures we are, human beings. And I would also like to tell you about a case when it was necessary for people to adapt to a totally new situation. and I am speaking about the situation a little more than 100 years ago. So the most important events you see now on the screen. And my question is what all these events meant. What do they mean to those Latvians who were living outside in the USA or South America? And why did I come to investigate for a moment? The situation in 1918, the 18th of November, the Republic of Latvia was proclaimed. Of course, these people in the United States, they got the news that they knew that there had been a war at their home country for the past years, and now the news reached them that a national sovereign country has been proclaimed at their country of origin. And how does something so very important at the home country affect people abroad, individually and as a group? The short summarized answer to this is that it does affect on many levels. For the very least, an individual has to decide within himself his own personal attitude towards the event, which he does according to his beliefs, including political, his level of knowledge about what is going on home, according to his character, etc. And this in turn influences these people abroad as a group. And formerly purely theoretical differences, for example, in political views, are debatable. And this is exactly what happened among the Latvians abroad. Who were these people and how many were there? So before World War I, there were about 220,000 or even more Latvians living outside the territory of Latvia. This also includes the territories of the Russian Empire, but we will not be speaking about them in this case. What we are speaking are these largest communities in the United States, about 50,000, Canada 10,000, up to 3,000 in Brazil, also Australia, Great Britain and other countries. In the United States, the main centers were Boston, San Francisco, surroundings, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. Who were these people? Many of them had emigrated from Latvia starting from the second half of the 19th century, and the end of the century religious freedoms like Baptists or political freedoms, for example, New Current supporters here in Latvia. So, of course, some were seeking just an economically better life. And another significant wave of emigration took place after the revolution of 1905. In this case, of course, the reasons for emigrating were highly political, and there were very many left-wing Latvians among the emigrants. So what happened when the country was proclaimed? The war was going on in Latvia, and naturally enough, the community abroad divided itself. Part were very negatively disposed towards the newly founded republic, and part of them were very positive and supportive. By far, the larger part were negative or negatively neutrally disposed. That was so because of a variety of reasons, because the politically very left attitudes, even radically left attitudes, and also lack of reliable information from the home country and what was going on there, and many such. Those with positive attitudes were in minority, but they were very active, and their activities will be in the foreground of my today's speech. So after this lengthy introduction, I come to my actual topic, but I feel this introduction was necessary to understand the broader picture and the meaning behind those facts I'm going to narrate to you now. So we're going to look at the financial aid to war-affected people in Latvia and Latvian state authorities provided by Latvians abroad. For this analysis, forms of financial aid that can be directly linked with the attitude towards the homeland and with attitude towards the developments in the homeland, like the war and the proclamation of the Republic. So these aspects have been chosen. Private aid, which was sent to relatives in Latvia, has not been covered in detail, as the motivation for it was largely private and was determined by family ties. It should also be noted that only information on the views and actions of socially proactive Latvian immigrants has survived. We do not know what those people thought who were kind of like thinking about these things at home and not doing anything, not acting upon them. So, how do the financial help was created, how the funds were collected? It has to be mentioned that already during the war, the United States Latvians sent aid to poor and needy Latvian people, refugees and victims of war, like 1917, but the relief work grew significantly after the independence of the Republic of Latvia was proclaimed. Both organizations and individuals participated in collecting money or preparing material assistance. The collecting of funds involved both existing organizations already existing in USA or somewhere else, and also new organizations were established for this one specific purpose. Here on the screen you see a few examples of these organizations from several countries, and which is also interesting that Brazil is among them. There were actually two in Brazil, which is remarkable because quite a few people there were like religiously minded and not much into national things. You also see the committee in Bern in Switzerland was formed, but we must take into account that European states, that they themselves had been ravaged by war, and the economic situation in Europe was significantly less favorable to collecting donations. It was much better like in USA, Canada, or even South America. Both religious and both secular organizations participated. We see, for example, St. Marcus Latvian Evangelical Lutheran Congregation of New York collecting donations. We see American Lettish Baptist Literary Association collecting donations, and also several others. It is also necessary to mention, as a very important actor in all this movement, the patriotic Latvian newspaper Amerikas Vēstnesis, or American Herald, which was based in the United States, which was very active in collecting donations. This newspaper was also distributed outside the United States, also in Europe and Brazil among Latvians there, as well as Canada. So the appeals to donate that they published gathered response from several countries. So what means were used to collect donations? Of course, you could always like publish a note that you're collecting donations for sending them to Latvia and ask people to donate. That would be a direct appeal for donations. But also other more creative means were used, like holding social events, balls and dinners, where you had to pay to participate, and of course some money went to ensure the event, like the happening of the event, but everything that was left extra was donated. Also lotteries, like on the 25th of October 1919 in Philadelphia, this Lettish Relief Society organized a very big lottery, with main prizes being two paintings by famous Latvian abroad living painter Gunārs Āboliņš. One was the portrait of American statesman Lincoln, and the other was just like fruit, like natural sketch. And this lottery was really a big success. Every lottery ticket cost 10 cents, and the raised proceeds, which were later donated to Latvia, were $300 US, which was quite a nice sum at the time. Also, a few enterprising people were publishing and selling small prints like postcards. Here you see a few examples of these postcards with Woodrow Wilson and just like Latvian illustration and with Krišjāns Valdemārs on them. And also proceeds from these sales were donated. How do they get the money to Latvia? That was not easy at first. Of course, aid was mostly sent in the form of money, especially from more remote locations such as the United States, because sending physical items like clothes or food supplies, it was at first it costed more because of the weight, and in addition, during this uncertain period during the war, it was nearly impossible, or at least unpredictable, if these goods would ever arrive. Sending material aid became much easier after 1920, but that is also not really our today's topic. After the proclamation of the Republic of Latvia and the establishment of the first diplomatic representations abroad, sending of the collected funds to Latvia was executed through this system, which you see on the screen. So the donators sent the money via check to either Latvian legation in Paris or Latvian legation in London. These legations came in contact with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Latvia. I don't know if they really transferred the sums. I suppose they did not. They just transferred news about the sum received, and the ministry paid out here in Latvia, paid out the sum required to the recipient. Who were these recipients? The most, the main four you see on the screen, it was the Women's Relief Corps, Red Cross, War Invalid Society, and Society for the Re-Evacuation of Latvian Refugees. Those were four biggest humanitarian aid organizations at the time in Latvia, and donations were distributed among them if the donator had not given a specific target, like just sending money to help victims of war in Latvia. So then the money was distributed evenly between these four. But many, of course, addressed their donations directly to one or other of these organizations. Of course, as I already mentioned, there were quite a few of private recipients getting money from their relatives abroad, and which is very important in the case, in this broader context I was telling you about the attitudes towards the newly founded state, that foreign Latvians also provided financial assistance to, for example, the Latvian delegation at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. Because, of course, for the newly founded state, the money was scarce and the expenses were great, and at home and abroad, and the funds for such abroad activities were not always enough. We see also interesting examples in Great Britain. Latvian sailors who are based in Great Britain or just staying there, they also donated for various causes. In the archives you have those donation lists still available to see, and it's very interesting that there are very, very specific purposes for what these people are donating. On the top of this list, you see the purpose, the purchase of the flag of Latvia for the needs of the Latvian embassy in London, or more general support for the founding of the Latvian state and consequently the revival of shipping. So these people were donating their few pounds or few small amounts of money for these very specific aims. On these latter, which are donations for embassy or for legations for delegates at the Paris Peace Conference, really are the most important if we are seeking to determine the attitude towards the Latvian state. There are undoubtable proofs that there were people with very positive attitudes. Donations for the relief of suffering war victims is indicative of positive attitudes, but the motivation can also be humanitarian behind this, not purely political. But of course, those who were strictly negative towards the Latvian state, they did not participate in this donation system at all. Okay, so about the amounts donated. It is practically impossible to calculate the total amount of donations which were made by foreign Latvians, because it was sent to Latvia in various forms to various recipients, and the calculations are given in different currencies. But I have chosen several examples which could help to illustrate the overall impression of the total amount. So, for example, in August 1920, the Society for the Re-Evacuation, so up to the August 1920, the Society for the Re-Evacuation had received around 19,000 Latvian rubles from foreign Latvians via the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Again, in the first 7 months of 1920, the Latvian Women's Relief Corps had received almost 45,000 Latvian rubles in the same manner from the United States. The Latvian Red Cross in 1919 had received a little over 364 pounds in this way, which roughly translates to a bit more than 100,000 Latvian rubles. Of course, it also has to be noted that the currency exchange rates fluctuated very much. So the value of money really was changing like every week, and it is almost impossible, therefore, to decide what was really the precise amount that was received. But as we see from these examples, it was very considerable. For just to compare, in February 1920, like the salary for transport workers in Liepāja port was 35 rubles a day. So 100,000 is already a quite nice sum. I think I have still a few minutes, so I may mention about frauds and misunderstandings. When there is money involved, it is always a question if all people involved are good people. My research so far has shown, at least I have not found any actual like fraud, someone trying to steal the money or to like use it for his personal needs. What I have found and what is really prominent in these archive documents is misunderstandings. The donors in the United States, they of course wanted to know that their money had received these organizations like the Red Cross or others in Latvia. How they tried to notify them was by publishing a note in newspapers in Riga, like saying that we have received such and such sums from Latvians in the United States, etc. But there were quite a few problems with that because, well, it was not done regularly enough at first, and also it didn't help much if this newspaper got to the United States, which was mostly the case. So it was nice that they published it here in Riga, but it didn't help those people in the United States to know that their donations had been received. And also the diplomatic embassies, diplomatic nations through whom the money went and who consequently received also these questions, did our money get to Latvia? They encouraged again and again to write letters to the United States to say thank you, we received your money. But still, it was not functioning so very well, which led to certain mistrust. We also have to take into account that in the United States, the anti or negatively, the people with negative attitude towards the newly founded state, they were also actively advertising against any help, saying that all this money is like wasted, that there is quite enough of everything in Latvia and no donations are needed, etc. And this certain mistrust created problems for those people who really wanted to gather donations and send them to Latvia, and kind of helped propaganda against further donations. And so, just to conclude in a few short words, at first I have to say that this is partly still research in process, and there are many more things that have to be looked at to arrive at conclusive statements, conclusive conclusions. But still, what I would like to gather from all this is that although patriotic Latvians were not a majority among the socially active foreign Latvians, this fact was largely mitigated or offset by their activity, and they managed to achieve significant results. And this, what I would say, the collecting and sending financial help to Latvia was one of the areas of activity where these results are most tangible, most demonstrable, and also most easily to analyze. As I already mentioned several times, it is very important, these donations that went directly to structures of the Latvian state, because it is a direct statement that we support this political reality that has come to be in our home country. But of course, the majority of consignment was to support war victims, poor people, people in need, which of course was really necessary in Latvia at that time. The donations were exactly, there is not the exact amount is not to be determined, but it is easily seen that the individual donations tended to be small or medium, like people were donating really small sums, but it all added up to these large numbers which I mentioned. So I think that is all from me today.
Thank you, dear Kristīne. You finished very on time, exactly on the minute you was provided with the time schedule. And for now, we would like to ask if there are any questions, hot questions for Kristīne just after her presentation. I don't see any hands for this moment. So very shortly, Kristīne, could you provide us your opinion? What kind of directions of future research in this field you see for the next stage of your research?
Well, my wish would be to determine more precisely how these attitudes towards a home country is formed in diaspora, because it's kind of a unique situation. We have a Latvian diaspora before we have a national state, a national country, like home country, and how these people react to the fact that suddenly there is a Latvian state, and you have to react to that. So financial help is one aspect. There's also quite an extensive correspondence with these Latvian diplomatic representatives by these people living abroad. I would like to go more detailed manner into that, like just seeing the attitude, seeing how these people form an attitude towards the country. It's really interesting reading because there are things like, what is the flag of this our new country? Like nobody knows. Somebody is using some other colors, like the colors of student corporations. Somebody is using something, and these diplomatic representatives, like legation workers, have to explain that, yeah, this is the new standard, and we have now the red, white, red, and the next letters you see already, these people are writing back that, okay, we also procured a red, white, red flag. It's now prominently displayed, like at our club, or and it's just I don't even know how to kind of gather this information, how to analyze it. It's more like, well, I don't know, you need a psychologist there or a social anthropologist or something like that to help you. But it's really fascinating.
So you see even some directions for the interdisciplinary research in the future, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you very much, Kristīne, for your very interesting presentation about this topic. And as the time is running, we would like to ask the second presenter, that would be researcher Dr. Kristīne Blockytė-Naujokė from the Department of Philology, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities in Klaipėda University, to give her presentation. So, Kristīne, are you here and are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, I am here. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. And now I will try to share my presentation.
Thank you so much, Kristīne.
Okay.
Yes, we see.
Okay, great. So, wonderful.
So, thank you very much. We can see you, we can hear you, and Kristīne, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So, you know, it's a bit weird to be making this report about Easter. Then the Christmas season is about to kick in, but life is always full of surprises. The original plan was to be making this report in the spring, but because of the pandemic, yes, of COVID-19, we are sharing our scientific insights only in mid-autumn. But better late than never, right? So before we begin, I would like to define the geographical boundaries of the term Lithuania Minor that is used in this report. The greatest part of Lithuania Minor belongs to the region of Kaliningrad and other two parts of Lithuania and Poland. So in this report, I will be referring to the Lithuanian part of it. So the traditions of calendarical holidays in Lithuania Minor is a very distinctive phenomenon of Lithuania culture. It is closely related to the historical, political, social, and religious development of this region. The analysis of separate calendarical festivals shows that the structure and local meaning of the same celebration, both of the same ethnos, could differ. And the increased influence of the cities and the transformation of the ceremonial rituals into entertainment at the beginnings of the 20th century. So the subject of the report, of course, Eastern holiday traditions and rites in Lithuania Minor. Research goal. analyzing the specifics of Easter holidays of Lietuvininkai in the chronological aspects, revealing the structural and functional changes of the rites and traditions by comparing them with the elements of rites in the celebration of rest of Lithuania. Tasks. To discover and describe customs and the rites of Eastern celebration of the Lietuvininkai in all the printed sources from the first mentions until the end of the 19th century, and analyze the meaning of its contents. To examine the main modal elements of Eastern holiday of Lietuvininkai from the later half of the 19th century to the 20th century, and to examine modern customs from 1990 of Eastern holiday of Lithuania Minor, and discuss the possibility to continuity of ethnic tradition in reconstruction customs and model of modern holiday. Because my main tasks are quite wide and the time is limited, I will try to discuss everything specifically without expanding too much. And if anyone is interested, everything will be set out in details in the article. So, research data and methodology. A main data source, the material of ethnographic expeditions collected during the author's field research in 2007 and 2013. 50 Lietuvininkai were interviewed in 17 areas of Lithuania Minor. Selection criteria was the applicant was born and raised in the employees of 11 of the most active cultural centers in the region were also interviewed. In order to get a more detailed picture of the research object, all available sources were used, both printed and the ones founded in the funds. Whose information from total of 245 presenters was collected on the topic of calendarical holidays in Lithuania Minor, the chronological boundaries of which are from 19th century to the end of the 20th century. So 148 ethnographic stories about the customs and traditions of the Lithuania Minor Easter celebration were collected. So taking into account the chronological limits of the collected material, the report constructs the following models of the Lithuania Easter celebration. 3 models: archaic model, end of the 19th and of the 20th century, and contemporary end of the 20th, 21st century. Archaic Easter model, or first mentions. The following elements characteristic to the archaic model of Easter celebration of Lietuvininkai can be distinguished. First one, painting of eggs and various action with them. Judging by the letter Martynas Mažvydas wrote in 1549, in which he states that he is sending a psalm instead of Eastern egg, we could assume that the clergy of Lithuania Minor of the 16th century was customary to give your fellows Easter eggs as a gifts. It were considered to have magical power of imagery and the promotion of life up. In the 17th century, Theodor Lepner describes games with Easter eggs in Lithuania Minor. On Easter Day, they strike hard-boiled eggs painted with salt or herbs. The egg that gets broken falls to the one who broke it, or they roll them on the ground. Karl Kappeler also gives similar descriptions. One was holding and another hit in from above. The one that got broken was taken by the winner. So, according to old written sources, it can be said that games were played with one-color painted eggs in Lithuania Minor in 17th, 19th century. Most popular colors were black, red, and green. Lietuvininkai shaved painted eggs or decorated them with wax, painted them with ornaments, with details of dots, rule leaves, stars, or writing names, household names, and greeting. Second element is laulauninkų vaikštynės. I have no idea how to translate laulauninkų, but lalauninkai, lalauti, go singing from door to door and collect presents. Ceremonial visiting of households with greetings, pre-sing songs, which also had ceremonial significance that was known for most agriculture nations and had magical functions and was used through various calendar holidays, hoping for better harvest. In the middle of the 19th century, capillaries captured this rite of Easter lalavimas in Lithuania Minor. And I will try to improvise and sing a part of Lalinka. Labas vakars, pongas pador, hei lalo. Labas vakars, pongas pador. Ar jau miegi saldų miegą, hei lalo. Išsibūdink, pasijudink. Lalauninkai meldžia poną, hei lalo. Auksinėlį į delmoną. So, to reward lalauninkai was mandatory. It was a sacred right to make the congratulatory wishes come true. Lepneris mentioned Lepneris mentioned a term of swinging on Easter. For centuries, the existential base of the nation was agriculture. Therefore, the main attention in calendar holidays was pointed a future harvest, animal growth, the health, success, and continuity of the members of community, all kinds of fertility. So swinging was one of the main magical actions to be the harvest of flax, and this rite was alive until the end of the 19th century. So summarizing the examples of pattern of an archaic celebration, we can claim that until the end of the 19th century, transformation processes in Lithuanian Easter customs did not have a rapid pace. Easter of Lietuvininkai end of the 19th century, 20th century, the second model. Almost all elements that are typical for the archaic celebration model of Lietuvininkai can be found in the structure of the Easter in the 20th century. Painting of eggs and all things related, swinging, using water in various rites. You can see everything in the map. But almost all of those rites lost their initial ceremonial significance and began to transform into entertainment. Okay. So one of the elements in this model is libation of water and other ritual involving water. So the example is like rytmetį saulei tekant Velykų pirmą rytmetį žmonės sakydavo, kad Kristui keliantis net saulė šokinėja, teka, mirguliuoja ir džiaugiasi. The other element in this model is whipping with juniper or birch branches. Lithuania major had a custom of being whipped with an Easter palm, but there was no such tradition in Lithuania minor. On the first day of Easter, in some parts on the second, people would whip one another with branches of juniper or birch. They chatting. Plaku Velykų rytą, žalia beržų šakele, prašau 5 kiaušinių, gabalėlio lašinių ir patenkintas einu. Easter eggs and Easter bunny. I see that the time is lag, yes. So one interesting fact is that in Lithuania minor, Easter eggs would be hidden in the garden or near the barn by the stack of hay and various herbs and nest made of moss. Children were told that we were left there by the Easter bunny. And example is right here. Mesgi tikėjom į zuikį, tai jau tėvai pasakys, vaikai būkit geri, bo zuikis nepadės kiaušinių. Tai einam ieškot, o tų lizdų kiek ir raudonų, ir baltų, ir violetinių, ir žalių. Tai žiūrėjom, kas daugiau surinks. Ir aš dabar savo anūkiams po savo eglę prie namo padedu dėžutę, liepiu pasidaryti lizdus ir rytmetį randu, jos ten randa kiaušinių. And contemporary model of Easter. In the modern Easter model of Lietuvininkai, we can single out a couple of forms of celebration. Educational activities before celebration, families celebration at home, and celebrating the Sunday after Easter in public spaces. Easter in Lithuania is unimaginable without the Eastern eggs. Of course, the techniques of how the eggs are decorated slightly changed, but the action remained identical. Eastern eggs are given as the present, and various games are played, rolling and trying to crush opponents' eggs. After Ethnocultural Center began to organize the celebration, the traditions also became popular in Lithuania Minor after 1991. Annual celebration of the Sunday after Easter halts at children's market. Eggs are rolled, people swing on the swings and play old games that were played by children shepherds. Educational activities during which people are taught to dye eggs to make nests from hay become more and more popular. An artistic program of folklore ensembles and an egg rolling competition also take place during this festival. However, instead of the Easter bunny, typical for the whole of Lithuania, emerges the Eastern grandmother, who some forms of this celebration may claim its part as continuity of the old Eastern traditions, as well as the creation of new ones. And I think still have few minutes or no?
You still have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, so conclusions. Conclusions, festive rituals played and exceptional role, so the change of Lietuvininkai customary tradition was low. Essential elements characterizing the celebration model of Easter was dyeing of eggs with various archaic semantic and various action with them, walking of the launinkais, binging, pouring water, and other water-related rites, sacrifice to the spirits of the dead. Different processes like the disappearances of the ceremonial functions of calendarical customs, the formation of new roles, and the unification of traditions can be distinguished through the end of 19th century to the 20th century. Here is about Eastern Bunny, and the modern model of Lietuvininkai holidays tries to combine ethnic traditions with the needs of the consumer-oriented modern society. Several forms of celebration can be distinguished: family celebration at home, pre-celebration educational activities, Sunday after Easter, Easter celebration in public space. These customs are supported only institutionally on the initiative of Ethnic Culture Center's folklore group. And ačiū už dėmesį.
Thank you very much, Kristina, for your very interesting presentation. It was a great pleasure to hear so much interesting facts and your deep analysis in it. So for now, as our time is running, I will ask to give you some questions from the other participants in the discussion part. So thank you very much, Kristina, for now, and we will back on the time of discussion. And as the time is for other presenter, I would like to invite researcher Dr. Reda Šatūnienė from the Institute of Regional Development, Šiauliai University, to give her presentation. Kristina, could you stop sharing your screen, please? Thank you so much. And Reda, I will ask you to share your presentation as well.
O kodėl manęs nerodo tam bendrame ekrane?
We can see you.
Really? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, but okay. 1 minute. It's just I was preparing so long that I am clicking now for sharing. Do you see my?
Yes, we can see. Just we would like to ask to make a full screen.
Yeah, I know. I just need some time because
yes.
I am clicking.
It takes time, of course. No worries. Just take your time, and everything will work.
Thank you very much. Okay,
so Reda, you are ready, and we will give you 20 minutes as well. So good luck.
Yeah, I know 20 minutes. I will try to be maybe short a little bit. So thank you very much. My presentation is called Attitudes Toward Non-Conventional Healing Practices in Local and Global Context. Of course, it is a very wide theme, so I will touch just only some aspects of this topic. And quite similarly, as the previous presenter, Kristina, told, while I was preparing this theme, it was very hot, very actual, and very fresh. Now all this started being not so hot, maybe calm, or the politics. Now we are now orientated and worried more about elections. So, but I will present it here anyway. The aim of this paper is to discuss attitudes towards non-conventional medicine in Lithuania and beyond within historical and cultural perspective. And here I would like to mention that term non-conventional, what I mean here is, I take it as an umbrella term used for a variety of healing forms that are also usually called alternative and complementary. And here I, of course, or any researcher of non-conventional medicine could discuss a lot about these terms because what do they mean and how they are taken in a society at large or by some specialists. But I want to continue. And this will briefly discuss the legitimization, institutionalization process of non-conventional medicine here, how it's going, what are main ideas, discourses, practices, and I will present how it is mainly reflected in media, in virtual media, because there were many reactions, publications made, and so on. Of course, I am conducting my research and I have the data from my field work, but here I just wanted to focus more on media. And here, in very briefly, I want to present main topics, main discourses on how in media this topic is discussed. So first and second point says that part of a society, medical doctors, clients as well of non-conventional healing practices and practitioners themselves, they agreed that we really need law and some knowledge about classical medical education. Another one once declared that we have to get rid of those charlatans and all those doubtful services. Another part told that even signed a petition was, I've checked recently, now it has even more signatures than it was before in spring when I was first looking to this website, 1979 signatures, mostly arguing that The law in its current form will destroy many existing non-conventional healing practices in Lithuania, and they just didn't agree with maybe some part of it. Another part believe that if clients are well educated by themselves, so there is no need for excessive regulation, especially if there was an idea to apply like a licensing system, as the biomedical doctors, they are working on the system of license up to date. So it was an idea like to do something similar in non-conventional healing area. And here, just to have, because I think none of us here may be an expert of this legislation project, so it was interesting for me as well to read this. I need to read this to see this legislation project. So main concepts in this document are natural and folk medicine. As it is described, the purpose of this area is to alleviate symptoms of illnesses using biopsychosocial measures, and health recreation area. It's contemporary and alternative healthcare practices for strengthening human health and cherishing spiritual wellness. Here, everywhere, I want just to say that the translation is mine. So I was trying to reflect it as much as I could, but since my education is not English translator, so. And another interesting concept to know for us, maybe in what spheres those alternative and complementary practices, as it is described in the legislation, because I call them non-conventional and very general, and here it's the terms used are complementary and alternative medicine. So they are divided in those licensed complementary practices like health recreation services group, meaning body care services and face care services, and licensed natural and folk medicine services group, and they are divided in following order, like biological ethics service group, body contact, psychosocial, and Eastern medicine system. And we could talk even a lot about each of them because they are very wide. And here's some other important, the slide, when I was making the slide, I wanted to show maybe what are planned to make, to prepare, who would be qualified for an official contemporary and alternative health care provider, and what education would someone need. So in total, there are like 5 levels of this education, and depending on the role that non-conventional healing provider would like to take care of. So, for example, a person who wishes to receive CA healthcare specialist certification has to finish a higher or equal study program and has completed a Contemporary and Alternative Healthcare Joint Interdisciplinary Studies program, and of course to demonstrate all those documents. If person wish to receive a recreation certification, so he or she has to finish higher equal medical or rehabilitation education, nursery, midwifery, cosmetology. And in another level, if healthcare specialist in a natural and folk medicine want to get this certification, and he wants to provide the services of biological impact, so he or she has to possess medical, odontology, or pharmacy education. And if we go further, okay. A person who wishes to receive a natural and folk medicine certificate in order to provide body contact services, he has to maintain equal medical. Everywhere it's medical education, and another part is this specific complementary or alternative medical education. And here, if to finish about this, we see that on the level of the difficulty of healthcare services, people would like, it's a project, to be engaged. The requirements are different, and the level of knowledge depth is different. The last one, the fifth, is the person who wishes to receive natural and folk medicine certificate in order to provide psychosocial effect services, where animals are taking part, has to possess medical or rehabilitation education, or social work, psychology, pedagogy, or ecology. So we see quite a different, of course, requirements that are planned to be. Okay. And so role of a media, since I am speaking about reflections in media, I wanted to present the role of a media in creation of non-conventional medicine profile in general, because actually the legislation is one thing, and it's normal to think that we need it, but many discussions usually are caused and many talks are happening in media. Not maybe those talks are very visible, and there are many research made in worldwide about non-conventional healing globally in different areas in Asia, in South America, because it's very active, very vivid, and actually quite very popular topic everywhere. And there are many statistics that people are using it, trying it, having this deriving from different reasons why are they choosing these non-conventional healing methods. And like, for example, one of the very interesting researchers, Fadlon, notices that in media, question of hegemony, but not the authority of biomedicine is usually discussed if we speak about the context of non-conventional medicine. So that what it means that usually non-conventional healers admit the authority of biomedicine. It's not that they would like to reject it, but still, how to say, the authority belongs to this scientific classical media. Okay, so what are main critiques, disagreements, or agreements, opinions in Lithuanian media? So main claims against this law declare that sometimes formal academical medical education is probably exceptional, and that this law is oriented towards interests of medical doctors only. So here maybe we see also, not maybe, a reflection of the hegemonic relations as well. So here we see a quotation that I have translated those critiques, but I made a generalization here. And also there it is stated that if there would be licensed only part of those non-conventional healing practices that are present now in Lithuania, others would probably fall into some dark zone and could probably be more easily pushed into the area of so-called charlatanism. And this means that this legislation project, as I understand it, may take one practices as more, I don't know, more suitable, and others not so. And as I imagine, the author of this quotation meant this. Also, there is quoted that this licensing system is also very expensive, and it would put people probably into unnecessary bureaucracies. We don't like bureaucracies anywhere. We require that reglementation of CAM would be based on self-regulation. So independent NGOs should be responsible about the development of the sector, quality, and also could take care of the cases when subject doesn't follow good practices. It is also declared, it's my generalization, that diploma of higher education is excessive in some cases, and this is proved by hundreds of successfully working individuals who has gained their knowledge in other ways than high school education. So, spaudžiam mygtuką. Okay. They also state that Lithuanian Ministry of Health chooses the model of regulation used in less economically developed countries instead of using the regulation rated by more economically advanced ones. And they suggest that Germany, UK, Austria would be probably a better choice because all those conventional and non-conventional healthcare providers probably deserve to have equal opportunities for bettering their practice as well, to work, get better qualification, and provide quality services. So, again. And the main claims that are for this law, that agree that it is very necessary, state that without a law there would be no possibility for restoration of a possible health damage if it would be caused by a non-conventional healer. And this is a quite very serious argument if we do both from the perspective of the provider, of the client, each of us, because we want to know and what are claims of this what are ideas of this part of supporters, that self-regulation does not guarantee restoration of a damage if that would be caused for a patient. And others say that there exists such kind of contemporary and alternative medicine that can heal healthy people only. It's an opinion. Natural medicine is not capable to damage health of healthy person, but it may harm health of a sick person. 100% is a quotation from an article. And there is a quite critical point of view in some cases. And it's actually, we could discuss each of these cases very widely, because of course it depends what people are looking for when going to this non-conventional healers, or if there is someone going with a severe condition and expecting for a miracle, of course it would be very doubtful. And but it's very difficult to control. And I also pointed out one idea of some person from a government who told that we want to control the area we do not understand much about. And so it's very difficult also to put and create a legislation on the area that is actually really very, very specific, there exists variety, like on the first slide, it was from yoga to like acupuncture, because of yoga or meditation even. Okay, let's say yoga, there are also exist some courses of like for the sport trainers, and they go to them as far as I know. But like meditation, and if we would like to compare it with acupuncture, so it's of completely different things. And maybe in some other quotation it was like told that it's so cold in my place, just I am shaking. There is also, I translated a quotation. Would you like that person without medical education would make you an acupuncture, or a shaman would heal you without a medical education? So it depends on the severity of many different situations. Or if we speak, for example, about folk healing, like, I don't know, užkalbėjimai. So it's also I don't know, it's completely different from acupuncture, like, for example. And what do they say else? Security is not ruining. Individuals who are practicing contemporary and alternative medicine for years will have diplomas, and they will be able to address them to a special commission, which will assess if the documents are reliable. So, so I am coming to an end, more or less, and it was very difficult in some 20 minutes to present maybe all this global context, which is of course present. So for example, here I found an example of Hungary, because it found the whole study of non-conventional medicine researchers, knowledges, anthropologists who made an extensive study about situation in Hungary. And in Hungary, CAM is officially regulated from 1997, as they found it on the website. And they state that official regulation of non-conventional medicine made a very strong impact there. After many non-conventional practices went to the underground status. Only few practices were incorporated by official medicine, and others became marginalized. So, and lately, it's also quotation from this book. You can find it in Google Books. From the former 15,000 practitioners, after 5 years, less than 1,000 has asked for a prolonged license in Hungary. License, it takes 5 years, as far as I remember. So this is a concrete example what happened in Hungary. But of course, I don't know how to evaluate, because how to say, it could be good and it could be not, of course, because it just requires a wider discussion, I think, from many parts of representatives who are connected with a team of non-conventional medicine. As well, for example, the variety of these we have to know also in each state what kind of non-conventional healing practices are popular, are present, or have a long-term tradition. Like, for example, there are many non-conventional healing practices in Russia and around. And if we remember, it became popular, shamans from Tuva, from Yakutia, they part of a traditional healing as well. So this is a very different healing tradition. Like, for example, if we can compare with the one existing in Lithuania. And so researchers who are long-time researchers of this topic declare, not only this one, that we cannot speak about one medicine, but maybe we could speak about many medicines if we want to speak about also non-conventional healing phenomenon, because all these non-conventional healings are based on very different system. That's why it's very difficult to compare, for example, to the scientific medicines, which has its own methods, how it have to be tested, clinically tested, what means reliable according to this medicine. And those other traditional medicines, like also Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, they use quite completely maybe different concept and model and understanding about health. And this is also a very wide topic, actually, to tell now in some minutes how different it is. But interesting to contribute to this theme that after also legislations in some countries for traditional medicine, changes also starts in those non-conventional healing practices. Like, for example, here they say that, like the traditional Chinese medicines, patients were moved to cabinets, clinics, sanatories, as well as use of contemporary technologies for diagnostics or change of medical drug preparations has been spotted. So here we discuss you. Okay, I'm finished. Okay, thank you very much. And so here what I see that also this traditional medicine starts to be more classical scientific medicine, like patients move to cabinets, clinics, sanatories, and okay, it brings us to also many ideas about what medicine, health, and healing means for society, for different people, for people having different backgrounds, different tradition, and a different lifestyle as well, because it depends a lot also about the individual values, ideas, And here it's a visual summary from my presentation. So statement 1, we need for the legislation and seek for patient safety. But it is a counter-argument, like if many non-conventional practices would possibly vanish, would the situation serve for a patient's benefit? Statement 2, we don't need excessive regulations, but as well, who is an expert of the knowledge? Who can decide which non-conventional healing provider needs medical knowledge or not? So it's a question of hegemony of authority, and I think it will be solved somehow. So what could be social solutions? Self-regulation, licensing, and of course we are all interested in safety of the user, of a client or of a patient as well, because when some horror stories, they are named, like in media, horror stories, when someone went to a healer, non-conventional healer, and he got some bad consequences. So people also want to avoid this thing because they want to trust to the person whom they are going to. And so what it means also that we have a fragmented understanding of this field and the need of critical thought as well. So thank you very much. I cannot make a conclusion what to do here, but wanted to open just how problematic maybe this area is, how it's difficult to define if we want to put everything different, various things in one concrete document, and people's attitudes to this.
So thank you very much, Reda, for your presentation, as the time is really running.
Okay.
We see that you have a lot of ideas for continuing this field of research. And we wish you a lot of success and maybe cooperation with other researchers to, let's say, to increase the knowledge in this field by your scientific insights. So thank you very much, Reda. I hope that we will get some questions from other participants in the discussion. And now we are running to the last but not the least presenter. I would like to ask Assistant Professor Dr. Ivana Pondeliková, she is coming from the Department of European Cultural Studies, Faculty of Arts, Matej University, Banská, Bystrica, Slovakia. She is cooperating with the head of the Department of European Cultural Studies, Dr. Jana Pecníková. And I hope that you, Ivana, now have the possibility to share your screen.
Yes.
Yes, so please start your presentation. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome all. So today I'll be presenting the topic we prepared together with the head of our department. Unfortunately, she could not join the presentation today as we are very online busy. She is right now in a different conference today with another colleague. So we are all very online. So I just started to sharing the presentation, and I would like you to ask you to tell me once you see it.
Yes, we see. Perfect, Ivana. You can start.
Yes, you can see it, but unfortunately I can't. It's still uploading there. Okay, now I've got it. All right, perfect. So today it's going to be kind of interdisciplinary topic that includes all the subjects of history, culture, and literature, because the field of our studies, cultural studies, covers all these topics. And me and Dr. Pecníková, we focus on the research of identity. So that's why I'm going to talk today about this particular new phenomenon exist in the past as we know it these days. So the research is based on a literary work, 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, who is currently one of the most famous writers writing about Afghanistan and issues happening in the country. Why we have selected this one is the reason that there is some similarity in the history of Slovaks and Afghanistan, basically on Soviet invasion. So Hosseini was also all his 4 works were translated into Slovak language. So he is kind of very popular in Slovakia. So I'm sorry. I will move on the slide. Hopefully it works. So I'll tell you a little bit about the author. So before I start introducing him, I have to say that Afghanistan as a country is called a cemetery of great empires. This quote I borrowed by Colin Quinn, an American actor and writer, because if we go back to history, even the Alexander the Great, the Mongols, the British Empire, and of course Soviets had it very difficult in Afghanistan because it's a harsh country with multi-ethnic composition. Yes, there are certain conflicts between various ethnics, but once if there appear some foreign enemy or the country that like to conquer them, they are able to unite together and fight the outside enemies. So that's basically about the very, very short background of the country and those people and its people. So the situation in the country to beginning of the 19th century, they were fighting nearly for more than 100 years, and in at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th, they gained their independence. And actually the last year, 2019, it was the year we in Slovakia commemorated the Velvet Revolution that happened in 1989, and that year it was the year of the Soviet withdrawal, of course, from Afghanistan. So the topic of Slovak and ethnic or national Afghan identity and Slovak identity are kind of similar topics than hiding our personal identities, persecution, adapting and accepting the regime, and living under the domination of another nations are well known for both us and Afghans as well. We do not have the common history, but the topics that we are going through are similar. So now I'd like to proceed to introducing the famous author and UNHCR ambassador, because he is very, very active helping refugees from Afghanistan. He even founded the foundation that helped the people from Afghanistan. So he was born in Kabul, but his father was diplomat, so they traveled the world. And as I mentioned, in 1980s, there started the conflict with the Soviet invasion, and that was the time the Hosseini's family were ready to go back to Afghanistan. But unfortunately, the conflict appeared, so they didn't go back. They moved to United States, and since then, his family haven't returned back to Afghanistan. So he is educated in medicine, but he in 2003 started his literary career with a first novel that's called The Kite Runner. And then in 2007, he wrote 1,000 Splendid Suns, that 1 year later was translated into Slovak language. So this story, I mean, the Kite Runner is about the male stories. It's a son and father story, and the 1,000 Splendid Suns, it's the story about two women that are of different generation, family background, social status, whose lives are connected together by marrying the same. It's very common in Muslim countries. A Muslim man can have four wives. So for us Slovak, it's something strange, but in their culture, it's a common thing. So the topics of violence, fear, issues, topics of identity, hope, protection of family are present throughout the whole story. And these ladies and the whole country are struggling for survival. His story can be also read as an Orientalist text, not only as a romantic story where he and she at the end meet and live happily ever after, but it has different dimension. It can be read as Orientalist text and also Neo-Orientalist text. Back to Orientalist is because there is a stereotypical depiction of Rashid. It's a main male character, and he behaves violently and he humiliates his wives, and he represents the domination of West. Although Laila, the younger woman, she represents modern society, and Mariam, she was the first wife of Rashid, she represents traditional society. They both symbolize this Orient. And the third aspect is Neo-Orientalist text because it portrays women as victims of Islamic violence. So basically that's introduction of the story, because we never know who has the experience of reading the story. So it's good to say some few words about the story. So it's also, I mean, very important to say that it can be read as a historical chronicle, because it starts in 1960s and ends, the story ends in the beginning of the millennium. And Hosseini, he has very specific role in this literary work because he is an insider. He is telling the story from his Afghan point of view, but writing in a Western style. So the story was originally written in English, not in Afghan, any of Afghan languages. So basically that's introduction of the story, and now I'd like to move on to the topic of identity. And especially to the ethnic identity in the story. So as I mentioned in the beginning, in cultural studies, we focus on the research of identity, and we understand it as we understand it not as a fixed thing, but rather as a process of creation. There are plenty of forms nowadays or of identities. It's a national, ethnic, religious. And there are new forms. For now, all of us, we are in our digital or virtual identity. So it's kind of a very, very new form. And actually we are living it quite, let's say, intense these days. We are all very online. And then there are two other identities. It's intercultural and hybrid identity. And also the author, Khaled Hosseini, is of his hybrid identity, as I mentioned, brought and born in Afghanistan, and his formative years and adult years he spent living abroad. So now I'd like to move on to ethnic identity. So we understood it as a set of characteristics that members of an ethnic community consider to be different from others, and that also can be objectively determined, as well as self-reflection, a sense of ethnic difference, and awareness of belonging to a particular ethnic group. So this ethnicity is very important for Afghan people. There are, let's say, about 40% of Pashtuns. They speak Pashto language and live in east and southeast of the country. Then another group of ethnic origin are Tajiks. There are 30% of them living in Afghanistan. Their language is Dari, and they live in the north part. 9% of Uzbeks and 9% of Hazaras are also another ethnic groups of great importance. So there was in 2018 they had a conflict of the ethnic identity because they started using an electronic ID card, and the conflict was about the name Afghan because originally it derived from the word Pashtun, and some ethnic groups rejected this name, saying that our ethnicity is our identity, because the conflict was that they wanted to have it written there, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, Pashtuns, and not Afghans only. So therefore they preferred to have written there the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, which includes all ethnic groups. As Hosseini puts it through the character of Babi, he is the father of Laila, the younger wife of Rashid. He is university professor, and education is very important for him. And let's say he is kind of rational character in the story. And he says that all this nonsense is dangerous about talking, I'm Tajik, you are Pashtun, and so on. And he says that the only thing that is important and that should matter is that they are all Afghans. So to conclude this part of ethnic identity and to move on to formation during two milestones, I would say that they still prefer to identify themselves with the ethnic group they belong to. So there were two milestones that were significant for formating their national identity, and that was Soviet invasion and the reign of Taliban. So Hosseini pays attention to historic events and incorporates them into the story. So during the era of communists, as I mentioned before, Babi, education was very important. He says that the only thing the communists had done right, or at least intended to, was education, and more specifically education of women. He further explains that almost 2/3 of the students at Kabul University were women that time. They were studying law, medicine, and engineering. And I mean, the era for women during the Soviet occupation was understood or perceived as a good era for women. Babi claims that that was a good time to be a woman in Afghanistan that time during the Soviet invasion. However, that was in Kabul. But there are remote places where the traditions are followed. So there were, for example, tribes in the remote areas, and especially Pashtuns. They followed the traditions and they fight against the communists because they were giving rights to women, and they didn't want these rights, let's say kind of the Western or modern ways of living. They didn't want to accept that. So after the Soviets withdrew, Afghans didn't know after 100 years what to do, because they were used to fighting. So they tried to find an enemy within them, and those conflicts were not only against the powers, but based on ethnicity as well. So this era, it was in 1990s, and especially 1996, it started the reign of Taliban. So young Talibs were educated in Pakistani schools that are called madrasas, and they were schooled or lectured by mullahs. Those are religious people who are very much who are important for all Afghans due to religion issues. So these young Talibs were influenced by learning about an ideal society that was based on strict adherence to Islamic law Sharia, and they created comments that are called the voice of Sharia. Some of them you can see in my presentation. I will not read all of them. For example, they ordered the exact length of the beard that young or had to grow. They had to wear turbans. Activities as singing, dancing, writing books, watching movies, all of these were forbidden. And of course, everything was, a help to form the identity of Afghans. They didn't know how to behave. They had to follow these kinds of rules. During the era of Soviets, women wear Western clothes. Then Talibs came, they had to be covered in burqa. They could not speak, they couldn't laugh, they couldn't use or wear jewelries, nail polishing, and so on. And all these orders were punished if they were disobedient. And the punishments were cruel. The worst was execution. So I think that it's time to finish the topic. Okay, I thought that you were writing to stop talking. That's why I checked the conversation. So I'd like to conclude the topic of identity, and especially this one in Afghanistan. In his novel, Hosseini compare the life under the Taliban reign. That he compares it to a ship, Titanic. And people in Afghanistan were hoping for help and to rescue. And at the end of his story, he hopes for better future for Afghanistan. And we can say that it's still unclear there, and it's quite difficult to form some strong national identity, because the regime was very often changing, and with the change of the regime there was a change of flag, national anthem, symbols. The country was renamed several times, so it's kind of difficult to create some strong national identity in these kinds of conditions. And to the last sentence to conclude this is that Hosseini's contribution to this topic is that he doesn't say bad things about the Western point of view to Afghan society, but he brings new knowledge to readers and turns Afghans to ordinary, loving people who long for a dignified life. So from my side, for now, it's all, and I'd like to thank you for listening to this kind of topic. And thanks for attention.
Thank you, dear Ivana. It was really interesting to hear you.
Thank you.
And now we have the session for 5 minutes, just for 5 minutes for our discussion and questions. As I wrote to the chat line, please do not hesitate to raise hands and to give some questions for our participants. While we are waiting for raised hands, if you do not mind, I would like to give a question to Kristina, our second presenter. Kristina, I hope that you are still here, and the question is connected to your topic, traditions and customs and rituals of Lithuanian minor. What main factors motivates the minor to keep the traditions in the way as it was in 16th, 17th century? Kristina, are you online still? I cannot see Kristina. Maybe she has left already, unfortunately. Okay, so is there any questions from the audience? Still no. Okay, so dear Ivana, could you answer? I was really interested in your presentation. I hope that many attendees have got motivation to read the book you have recommended today.
Thanks.
And what do you think? What are main factors motivating the second character, the younger women of this main book, let's say, to choose her way of life and maybe to act differently from the older generation character?
Okay, thank you for the question. Laila, she was, I mean, you know, in Afghanistan, and in other Muslim countries, it's quite common to get married in a younger age. I mean, she was, let's say, in her 14s, she was 14 or 16 when she got married. She had a friend, Tariq. They were friends since they were kids. And, you know, there were fights in Kabul, and I mean, he had to run away from the war zone. Her family, Laila's family, died, and Rashid and Mariam, they lived opposite, and Laila was the only one who survived, and that's so they helped her. She started living with them, and that time she learned that she was pregnant with her friend from the childhood, and you know, it's not okay to live under one roof with a married group and not to be a wife of the man. So she accepted the offer to get married to Rashid just because she knew she was expecting a baby. And she was, as a child or as a young girl, she was educated. She was excellent student. So she had completely different background than Mariam, that was the older wife of Rashid. She was harami. It's an Afghan word for bastard. She was unmarried child, so she was living outside the community in comparison to Laila, and they were different of the age, social class, and even their appearance. Laila is portrayed as a beauty. Even her name is symbolic and means beauty, beautiful woman. So I think she was the rational, and she chose this life because of the conditions and traditions in Afghanistan. So yes, I would recommend reading the book, definitely. but honestly, I have to say that I had to read it a longer period of time because I needed the break from that much violence written in the book. And especially on women, you know, we women are sensitive for reading such a story. So yes, I would recommend, but for a longer period of time, to have certain break.
Thank you so much, Ivana. I hope that it motivates us to read this book, not only because of women's rights, better understanding of Afghan traditions and identity, but as well as to get some ideas how we are lucky living in a different culture.
Yes, sure. Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Ivana. Kristīne, still there is a question for you. You was mentioning propaganda, which was against, let's say, financial help for war victims in Latvia. Maybe you have found what was the main sources for this propaganda. Who were those who made this, because we know that all countries were living through a hard period during the first war, and it's quite difficult to understand why it happened.
Well, basically, it was a question of political ideas. So these were Latvians living in the United States who were very radically left, like socialists to the bone. So their idea was that we need the revolution, the class society. We don't need a national country, and then the government of the national country is lying to you across the ocean. And it was basically because of this political engagement with radically left ideas.
Thank you so much, Kristīne. And there is another question for Reda. Reda, could you share your ideas about studies you were mentioning about education of non-conventional healing practitioners? Do you see any possibilities in Lithuania to have, or already it is, some study programs for natural and folk medicine or health recreation using such methods as you was mentioning? Reda, please unmute your microphone.
Oh, okay. Could you please repeat just the first part of the question, because I had the difficulties. I misheard.
Okay. The question is that you mentioned two main branches, natural and folk medicine and health recreation. Mm-hmm. And in both you mentioned that the law still requires some kind of education mm-hmm. for those healers. So do you see any possibility, or already it is already in Lithuanian universities, colleges, as study programs for such practitioners to educate?
I don't know. I don't know such a programs, and honestly, I don't know if they have I think first the law should be taken, and then probably those education programs would have started, because now when everything is just in question, people are thinking, as we saw in the media, they are arguing about some concepts, concepts. So I don't know if, like, for today you could study something officially in, like, I don't know, in our university or somewhere else. But I think if this requirement would really have been done, so I think why not? I think they should be this education offered, some kind of, yes, no. But now it's only discussions about. At least you are a medical doctor now, so it's different. You already have possessed education, or you are a nurse, or if you, so
Yeah. So in this case, I guess that some examples from the world, like Detroit State and Michigan State, where they have grow cannabis colleges already growing cannabis. So we still do not have such experience in Lithuania, but we know that a lot of new, let's say, cultures for agriculture comes to Lithuania, and I guess that in the future, thinking of legal legislation for this field, maybe we will wait for new study programs, as well as for the even some schools of those field.
Oh, I don't know, because medical cannabis is something different. I wasn't speaking about this in my presentation. I just didn't understand, maybe.
Yeah, but as they have such practices, maybe we will have something for non-conventional healing colleges, let's say.
Yeah, so I understood correctly. I thought that yes, because actually it's very interesting topic, because worldwide, we have different examples of how different practices are taken, or I would say even more accepted by the general society. I think this is also important, how people generally think, or is it charlatanism, or is it very good? Because as I mentioned, the knowledge is very fragmented, and but let's believe in education, and to take the best from non-conventional healing, and not to take the worst, to forget, just to develop. Thank you for the question. Okay.
Thank you, Reda. I hope that every participant of this conference, in a case that they will be interested in our presenters' topics, they will ask Regina, our chairperson of organizing committee, to share contacts, and I hope that you will find some colleagues interested in the same field for the future cooperation. So for now, I would like to thank all presenters for your huge job, for a great job you did, as you had presentations in a plenary session of this conference. And I would like to remind some main information for next sessions. So for now, we will have a short break, and the first and the second working groups in the field of the history, 12:30, that means after 20 minutes. Please grab your coffee, tea, or some snacks, and then come back. The third working session will start 1:30. The moderator will be Reda, and Reda will lead you to the issues of culture and language. So you will have this working session a little bit later. And for tomorrow, we will have at 10 the final closing plenary session moderated by Regina Kvašytė, and it will start at 10 in the morning. So for now, I would like to thank to all participants, to all attendees, listeners. I wish you to have a great conference, to have nice scientific discussions, and I leave you with a short break. So thank you very much. Researchers Excellence Network wish you a great conference.